So I'm going to take you through an update on what the CXM team have been up to and some of the features that we've released recently. Give you a demo of some of those features and then have a look at the roadmap for what we're working on at the moment and what's coming up in the near future. So some notable new features we've been working on. We've introduced the concept of notes against a customer record in CXM. So when someone rings up and there's something important about that person that other staff need to know, you can create a customer note and you can promote that note to an alert, and we'll have a look at that in a demo shortly. Email templates, so email notifications that go out to customers, which can be about any service that they have requested. Those templates are now branded, so that gives you a more professional look and feel for that notification to the customer. We've made an enhancement to rules so that you can trigger a rule at a specified time and date and time, and we'll have a look at that in the demo. OpenID Connect, so we've built a framework for being able to authenticate users from Jadu into other portals so that there's a seamless sort of handover, if you like. The first example that we're looking at is into Northgate Revenue and Benefits portal, so the customer can check their council tax balance. Case type import improvements. Put more simply, when Suraj was talking about the library earlier, this is improvements to allow customers to share their workflows from CXM, making it possible to download and upload those imports, those files between customers. And then finally, customer account registration improvements. So this is making the experience for when a customer goes to your website and signs up for a user account more seamless. It simplifies it so just it doesn't matter how that they sign up, whether they're invited by a staff member or whether they go onto your website to sign up, the process is the same. And that paves the way for a couple of improvements that we're looking at making soon around the ability to use a social media account to sign in to make it even easier. So without further ado, we'll have a quick look at some of those features in a demo. Okay, so I've now logged into CXM as a member of staff. And in this scenario, a customer has rung up. So I'm going to search for that customer first of all. I'm going to search on their surname, which is Jones. And the search results bring back a Mr. Mike Jones. So I'm going to click into his customer record in CXM. So we can see his name at the top. We can see that he has an online account. We can see his address and other details for him. So let's assume that Mike Jones has had wants to report a missed bin collection. So what we're going to do is create a note about Mike. So the first thing we're going to say is, so he's going to tell us that the bin was missed because he couldn't get up or couldn't get out. He's an elderly gentleman. So actually what he needs is an assisted collection next time. So what I'd probably do as a staff member is raise a request to the waste team so that they could then put that onto the relevant list so that the bin collectors then know to go and help Mr. Jones with his bin collections. But I'm also going to put a note against his customer record. So I'm going to say, please collect his bin from the top of his drive. When you create customer notes, you could also attach a file, a picture of the drive if you wanted to. And I'm now going to save that note. So I can now see the first note that I've created for Mike Jones. I'm also going to create another note. So while I'm talking to Mr. Jones, he tells me that he has trouble hearing. He's got impaired hearing and you need to speak clearly. So I'm going to put a note here that says impaired hearing, please speak loud and clear to Mr. Jones. and I'm going to save that note. So there's now 2 notes against Mr. Jones's customer record. I think that the impaired hearing note is the most important for staff members to see when they look at any case relating to Mr. Jones or when he rings up in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin that note to the top. I think it's already at the top, but any subsequent notes that are created will be appear in the list beneath the impaired hearing note. And I want to make sure that every staff member who views any transaction Mr. Jones makes with the council or who views his customer record when he rings up can see that. So I'm also going to make it a person alert. And you'll now see an orange ribbon at the top saying person alert, impaired hearing, and then there's a link to read the note. So wherever you are in the system, if you are dealing with Mr. Jones, you will see this note. And then finally, what I'm going to do from his customer record is I'm just going to report the missed bin, raise the case or the missed bin on his behalf because he doesn't want to do it online. He wants me to do it for him. So I'm just going to quickly fill out the form that raises the case for him. So I'm going to enter the address of the property, the collection date, and the container type. So it's a rubbish bin. So that's now raised a missed bin case against Mr. Jones for someone to go and follow up on. So if I click into that case, I can see that the note for Mr. Jones still appears. So it could be a third-party user, could be a bin collector, it could be a waste back office team member who has access only to this case can see that Mr. Jones has impaired hearing, or you could promote the assisted collection note. If I click on the history tab, so as a staff member I can view a full history of this interaction. The audit trail in the history in CXM by default shows whenever there is a correspondence or a notification that goes out to a customer. You can see under the alerts column it says there's one alert that's gone out to the customer, and you can actually see the email that went to the customer. So that here you can see the new email templates are branded, so they take the colour of the branding from your corporate branding colour scheme, as well as the logo for your local authority. So now switching over to how we build case types and workflows in CXM, just to show you one of the new features we've been working on. I'm going to bring up the garden waste case type in CXM, and I'm going to go to rules. So for those of you who aren't familiar with CXM and rules are automations. So this is where you define when a customer gets notified, when they get sent an email, when something happens on their case. It's where you set time limits. So if you want something to happen after a set number of days, if there's been no action, you'd set that as a rule. If you want to move a case along in a workflow, if you want to automatically assign people based on set criteria, you do all of those things and more through CXM rule automations. So just to reiterate what Suraj was saying earlier, the configuration of this is aimed at non-technical users like myself, so you don't need to write any code to configure these automations. So I'm going to just show you how you could configure a rule. So if we take garden waste subscriptions as an example, if you decided that you wanted to change the price for a subscription, you'd need to notify all of your subscribers. So using a new rule trigger, which is basically saying when the date and time meets the date and time that you specify, then perform an action. So we want to send an email to all garden waste subscribers, notifying them of the change in price at a certain date. So we want to do that a week today. on the 30th of November. We'll go for midday. We might want to apply conditions to the rule. So we might say, if we were doing something else like changing the collection day, we might want to just specify that that affects people in a certain zone but not other zones within the council. So we can do that by adding a condition. And then the final step is to configure our action. So here the action is just to send an email. And then we would choose our pre-configured email template, which would be called garden waste price increase or whatever we wanted to call it. And it's as simple as that. So the new triggering something to happen on a specific date and time enables you to send out notifications, and it's within the whole rules framework, so you could do anything with that. And that concludes the demo. So just to finish off then, the CXM roadmap. So at the moment, on the left side of the screen, you can see organisation self-service. So we're working on the ability for people who belong to an organisation or a business to be able to register with you underneath that organisation, and they will then have access to an organisation portal where they will see services that are targeted to organisations. So that could be requesting a skip permit licence, it could be landlord services, licences, etc. And then that user will be able to, through that account, administer other users and invite them to then act on behalf of that organisation. So that's a big improvement that we're working on in CXM, which we'll be looking to release in the coming few months. And then we've been working on some other smaller data improvements and, as mentioned, the OpenID Connect authentication. Near term, so Sarah was talking about GDPR. So we're looking at improvements to, as I mentioned, the whole registration process. So making it as seamless as possible for people to register. So that might be using their social media, their Google account to sign in without having to create a new, type in their email address and remember another password. The marketing element of it, so you can define what data you ask for when they sign up. You might then want to target relevant content to them through the website, through widgets on the account, My Account page, or send them marketing emails. And of course, tied up with all of that is GDPR. You can't take their data without telling them what you're going to use it for and how you're going to use it. So we're going to take into consideration all of those GDPR requirements with those improvements. We're still in we're in the middle of the scoping and design phase for that. And then longer term, I've mentioned social integration, so signing in with your social media account, but we're also interested in looking at, from a customer perspective, how they can interact with the council in the most frictionless way possible. So that might mean talking to you through Facebook, through Twitter, even through WhatsApp. So we're really interested in actually how can you enable the customer to do that. Reporting enhancements, feedback we've had from customers is they want more configuration around building reports and consuming and viewing those inside CXM. So we're going to be looking at that. And then there's two items on the roadmap for integrations. Integrations, as Suraj mentioned, is an ongoing, continuous thing for us. We're always looking to integrate with the most important back office systems for you. And that's about it. Thank you.